Especially when you look at the data the data that frustrates me is, when 70% of hospitality is women, only 22% of that is people in senior management or senior director positions. I always say, I never chase the money. I chase the positive impact I can have on other people, and the money came with it, actually. So I wasn't driven by money. I was driven by delivering a great service and looking after people.
Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and you know what? I'm excited to be here with you today. Now, before we jump into this episode, I'm going to share a quote with you that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "Young women should pave their own path." I find it quite confining to live up to anybody else's expectations of who you should be. And those beautiful words come to us from female entrepreneur and American actress, Jessica Alba. Now, in this episode, we are sitting down with Lisa Rhodes and chatting through her journey as she scaled her property management portfolio to well over 200 listings from a completely different country. And you know what? She sold that business and has come full circle now. Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a long time since we've been trying to organize this a few times. I know, and we got there in the end. So that's the main thing.
Amen, sister. So let's start off and have you walk our viewers and listeners through a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so Lisa Rhodes, I've been in the short-term rental space for about 25 years. I sound really ancient when I say that. But yeah, I have. I started as a property owner, as an investor, many, many, many years ago, first in the UK, and then I expanded my portfolio into Cyprus in off-plan properties, short-term rentals in Cyprus in about 2003. And quite by accident, I went into a very, very immature market. I was a very early adopter investor in that market. And I think my naivety, probably with a lot of other investors around that time, was I assumed that all the support services that we were going to need when the property was completed existed. And the reality was that they didn't. So I actually owned a marketing agency at the time, a very successful marketing agency in the UK, which was not in property. And when my property came up for that, the completion and the furnishing, all the good turnkey services that you need, they didn't exist. So I kind of had to make them happen. And I made them happen for my properties, but then I also made them happen for a number of other people who owned in the same complex that I did. Because they kind of saw what I did for me and said, can you help me do that for me? Which kind of opened my eyes to the fact there was this huge opportunity, this huge market, which needed all this help that didn't exist. And that was really what turned me from being a marketing person into a full property manager operating a business from the UK in Cyprus, which I scaled over those 19 years to 175 luxury villas that we managed. And I sold it towards the end of the pandemic, actually, in 2021. The sale was slowed down by the fact that we had the pandemic stopping me from getting onto the island to complete on the sale. So yeah, I disposed of the business in 2021. And subsequent to that, I've been a full-time consultant, educator, and mentor in the space.
I love it. And you work exclusively with women. Is that accurate?
I do. I didn't intentionally start exclusively working with women, but what I realized being a woman in this sector was, having attended an awful lot of industry events, European, UK wide, I was really frustrated by the lack of representation of women's voices in the space. It's changing, it's getting there, it's moving. I was also frustrated I didn't see enough women speaking. I didn't see enough representation of what really impacts women when we are running businesses as entrepreneurs, and the things that we're juggling are sometimes very different, whether it's managing our health, managing our family dynamics, managing that sandwich generation of young, children still at home and aging parents and stuff. And I felt like that needed to be addressed in the way that we support women in our space. So about 2 years ago, I kind of decided that I wanted to support women specifically in the space, and whether that was lobbying to get more women speaking and supporting them to do that, or whether that was mentoring and coaching women. So I primarily work with women property managers who manage portfolios like I did of 50 plus, helping them to scale, helping them to prepare for that exit point at some point in the future. 2024, I decided we needed a community representation in this side of the world. I know you've got yours in the US, and an amazing thing you've done over there, but we didn't really have that over here, really.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just kind of opened the doors quietly to a community sort of starting in the UK, and that's really bringing a lot of women into the space where we can see who they are and say, right, why are you not speaking on stage? Why are you not telling people your story? Why are you not doing this stuff? So that's really what the community was all about.
Amazing. Amazing. And, something that I have discovered along the way, because I often get asked, well, why do you just focus on helping women? There are lots of men that could utilize your knowledge or expertise. And for me, there is something very rewarding to helping other women gain confidence when it comes to running businesses, gain confidence in knowing how to operate or even how to acquire a short-term rental. There is something very rewarding in helping women develop leadership skills, right?
Yep.
And become the CEO of their business instead of, hey, I'm just an Airbnb host, right?
Oh yeah. You hear that? I'm just doing this. Like, and I ran a retreat in Spain in November, and the number of times I heard is and I'm like, there's no just about it.
Amen.
You're amazing. You're inspiring. You're doing a great job. We're just not very good at shouting about it. I don't think. I think we just get on with the job, and the women that I work with, what I realize is that they're very capable. That there's no question about people's capability or their motivation or their commitment to their businesses. But, it's a very lonely place, isn't it? Right? It's a really lonely place when you run a business. And I wish all those years ago that I'd either had a network, an education network, a forum, a community where I could have gone to on those moments where I just got, what on earth am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is really hard and really lonely. And that didn't exist. And I'm so glad that it now exists for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think you're right where, women are absolutely capable. So many of them are committed to their goals and yet find it exceedingly difficult because they do feel like they're operating on an island. No pun intended, because I know you actually did.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I think it's incredibly powerful to have a community around you where you can hack into that knowledge. I know for me, my community, especially in my mastermind community, the STR Success Accelerator and my Achievers Club, there is a brain trust of women that we can plug into where we know we're going to get real, honest answers. We can tap into other people's expertise, to their experiences, good and bad, and get answers to questions we actually didn't even know we had.
Well, you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And if you are kind of trying, especially in the current market, which is so hugely competitive, so hugely complex with legislation and hugely complex with tech now, the tech that's available now is mind-blowingly complicated. When you are trying to fathom that not out and run a business and make it financially viable and commercial and all the rest of it, it's really difficult now to get into this business and do it really well and do it profitably. And I think that's where people get stuck. And I think if you can share, I'm a great believer in paying it forward. So my community thing was always about paying it forward. It was never about making money. I have a mastermind. I coach people one-to-one. But this community was never about making money. It was about paying it forward and saying, I want to help the next generation of women to be as elevated, visible, and successful as they possibly can, because I know that they can change the landscape of the narrative in our sector that hasn't happened to date. So that was really my motivation for what I'm doing right now. It's about paying it forward. I've made my money. I've sold my business. I'm doing what I feel is the right thing to do now with the experience I've got. I could have gone into business consulting, general business consulting, but actually I feel so passionate about hospitality, taking care of people. It's a vocation when you get into hospitality. You really care about people. And I think women, without being too gender stereotypical, I think women do that part really well. What they're not very good at is shouting about how good they are at doing it.
And I will add to that, sometimes it's really difficult for women to even admit that they're good
Yes.
at doing it.
Yes, that
Right?
imposter syndrome that sits on their shoulders that
Yeah.
says, well, you know what, I think I'm okay, but I'm not really, you know, and where I did a lot of consultancy in between selling my business and coming back into the sector was I helped companies, particularly female founded tech companies, to raise private equity and finance to go to that next. So difficult for women founders to get private funding, you know, and they were really good at what they did, but a lot of investors, private, you know, business angels and, you know, venture capitalists do not invest in women. And I find that so very frustrating. And that was something else that really drove me in what I'm doing, is saying, why are these ladies not getting the investment like a lot of men are in our sector to grow their property management business, to get them to a really big size? And if they don't get that investment, it's really difficult for them to grow to that large scale size. And that still needs to change. That's still very difficult for women to get that investment.
I do want to ask you about that, because so many folks, I think, find it difficult to even wrap their brains around scaling to 175 properties, but what it takes to get there. So will you just peel back the curtain a little bit and walk us through your journey about when you did scale up to 175 properties? What did it take for you to be able to do that?
Well, I actually scaled beyond that. I scaled to about 220.
Okay.
But what I decided and what I realized was that, you know, you can have 220 properties, but not all of them are good. And not all of the landlords are good to work with. And it can become really painful and actually not very profitable. So we definitely got to a stage within sort of, 8 years. We grew quite quickly in the first 5 years because we were in an emerging market. We had a lot of investors that were looking for this support. And I'd come from a marketing background. I'd got a fairly good business background. So I was very clear on what we were offering, and we were offering a very professional service, which didn't really exist on the ground. So we were very fortunate. I think timing was very good for us. But you know, what came with that is if we, like a lot of people, took on a lot of properties and landlords that were not necessarily well aligned with our values and our business. And so we got to a point where we thought that there are definitely properties here that are not either in the right location, or the landlords and us just need to part company. So we scaled back, actually. We scaled back. And I don't think there's any harm in doing that, because it's better to have 175 really good properties and really good aligned relationship landlords than to have 220 just not doing very well.
Amen.
So we did, So I would say where I started, and it can slow down your progress, but get the foundations of all your systems and processes right first. Get your contracts right, get your positioning right, understand who your market is, who you're targeting, how you're going to communicate your value proposition to them, attract the right people to come and work with you, attract the right guests, get your sausage machine of bookings working really well. We were primarily direct bookings. The platforms that exist now didn't exist then for us. So Airbnb wasn't on the market, booking.com wasn't on the market. So we had to really create our market, which was quite tough. But I think get those things right first. Get your people, your positioning, your profitability, your financials, your processes right first. I call those my 6 Ps. I have a program called the 6 Ps of a successful property management business. And then you can scale. But to try and scale on something that's not solid is going to be painful. You're just going to have big holes.
Amen. You know, I found it interesting. I was out at Airbnb's corporate offices last fall, and there were about 200 property managers there that had all different size portfolios. And in fact, mine was one of the smallest. So I have a boutique property management firm, but lots of folks there who had 250, 300, 500, 800, 1,200 properties. What I found interesting, Lisa, is that so many of them were scaling chaos. Like they had no idea about driving operational efficiency. They weren't focused on the systems and processes. They were focused on, I just have to go get more properties. Right.
And you see that with a lot of businesses. They just want more properties. They don't necessarily know what properties they want. They don't know. So I never scaled into a new area until we had leverage and economies of scale to justify doing that. So we did not expand. So we started in one area, we concentrated that area, we established ourselves in that area, we were good in that area, then we moved to another area. Initially, I partnered with other property managers to deliver the services to that area because it didn't make sense to create my own team there until we had economies of scale to do so. So, again, being strategic about how you scale is really important because, as you say, there's no point scaling at any cost. Because that just is, it's, as you say, it's chaotic, it's expensive, it's not profitable. What's the point?
And it's not fun. I mean,
it's not fun. No, it's it's not fun. It's not fun. And that's the other part of it, is I think a lot of people go into this not realizing just what level of commitment it requires from you and the sacrifices. When I work with female property managers right now and they go, but why aren't I taking home a huge bank check at the end of the month? I'm like, because you're reinvesting in your business. This is not about taking money out of your business now. If you want to scale, you have got to continually reinvest in the business, whether that's reinvesting in people, whether that's reinvesting in tech, whatever it is, you are not going to be taking chunks of money out of your business right now.
Right. Absolutely. I want to go back to something that you mentioned that you had to do early on was create your market.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through a little bit about your approach to that, what you had to do to create that market, and how long did it take you?
So the first thing was we were really in a green market. So we were taking on properties. I don't know if you know Cyprus, but Cyprus has a very established European visitor market, primarily the Brits. Lots of Europeans, French, German, Dutch, Spanish come over to Cyprus. But they typically would go to hotels. So the short-term rental market was very green for them. And then you think, well, you've got Paphos as a very known market, but if you've got properties outside of that, it's unknown. So you've got to entice people to come and try a new area. So for me, it was about taking a property and going, if we've got a property in this location, who is the target profile guest that's going to want to come and try this and stay here? But then you have to go one step further and go, okay, so then we need to make sure these properties are interior designed to attract that specific market. And then it was about partnership. So we set up I'd got a background in sort of collaboration partnership programs in other tech spaces before I got into the short-term rental space. So I knew that my way to get these clients, these guests, was to partner with travel agents, other companies that would be bringing guests to Cyprus to get them to try something else. So it was through a very big network of collaboration partnerships that we managed to fulfill a lot of our property bookings. It wasn't through the platforms that people have got accessible to them today.
Interesting. And so often folks these days don't think about travel agents as a potential way to drive bookings. They're focusing, again, solely on the OTAs. Talk with us a little bit about working with those travel agents. What's important to know, how to create those win-win collaborations with travel agents?
I think it's like any business relationship, trust comes from building trusted relationships with those partners. So they needed to know. So what was important to them? What did they need to know about us? That we were a bona fide professional limited company. We were insured. We weren't going to disappear. We weren't going to defraud their clients. We had to build that trust with those partnerships. So maybe it started small, but knowing the market. So we had Russian clients coming in from Russian travel agents. We had Greek. A lot of the Greeks actually do travel into Cyprus for holidays. So it was about working out which partnerships we needed and approaching them and saying, we can offer your clients this, and we are going to offer them an incredibly high standard of service, a very high touch point service, because that's what we want. So we want to look after clients the way we want to be looked after ourselves. That's how I set the service up. How do I want to be looked after in a boutique hotel? That's how I want our guests to feel when they come and stay in one of our villas. So we were probably ahead of the game of some of the, but if you are a travel agency and you're trying to diversify what you can offer your guests, then our service was just another option rather than hotels that they could offer their clients. And whilst that was quite early in the short-term rental market, really, if you think back to 2003, 2005, there were families who quite liked the idea of being able to stay in one property rather than staying in a hotel. So I think we sold it on the basis of, you're going to partner with a professional organisation. We are not going to let your clients down. And as we proved that we were going to look after their clients, they had very discerning clients. Some of these clients would be spending an awful lot of money. Some of these clients would send somebody over to look at the property before they would even come and book it. This is the sort of market we were in. So, when you're in that market, then you just need to make sure that you are in your A game, that every member of your team knows what they're doing, that delivers that customer journey, that customer experience. And on the back of that, we got more and more bookings coming through those travel agents because their guests were happy.
Sure. And do you mind me asking, what type of commission did you offer the travel agents?
So we actually didn't offer them commission. They uplifted our prices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Talk to me a little bit about the systems that you needed to have in place in order to collaborate with the travel agents. So I would imagine, you had a robust property management software. Did you have other systems?
You say that. In those days, the PMS stuff that we've got now did not exist. So what I had to actually do was approach a tech company that specialized in estate agency software. So this is where it gets quite complex. And I think, there is no one size fits everybody, even today. But bearing in mind, I was a UK limited company operating in a euro market because Cyprus went into the euro within about 6 months of us starting the business over there. So we're dealing with dual currency and currency fluctuations and stuff. So not even a lot of PMSs would have coped with that even in the early days. So we worked with a company and they basically tried to create something that was going to do what we needed to do. And I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it managed the portfolio of properties. It managed the property management side of things, the service delivery side of things. And then we would manage the bookings on a kind of a very simple booking system. And then I suppose the key processes are, how do you communicate when you've got a booking to your service delivery team, your housekeeping team, your maintenance team? That bit is always going to be tricky. And that's the bit I think that is the hardest if you don't have a good PMS system.
Yes.
Because there's always going to be, you can always take a booking here, if you always manage the property here, but that bit in the middle where that, you've got, 30, 40 bookings coming in on the same weekend is the bit where you could drop some balls and cause yourself a lot of pain.
Sure. The next thing I want to ask you is about the mental load. Because again, as women, we have this invisible backpack that we are wearing, meaning, of course we are operating businesses, but we're also operating households. We are doing the laundry. We're fixing dinner. We're helping kids with the homework. We are getting kids to soccer practice. And so there is this invisible load that we are carrying. I'm curious how you dealt with that invisible load and how you're helping other people deal with that invisible load today.
Well, I think the honest truth is, this conversation, I'm very honest about this. There were definitely times when it was really tough. Really tough. I'm very honest about stuff. Women to women, there were several points in my life that really, really tested me running this business. One was when I had very aging in-laws that were very poorly, having strokes and dementia and things. And the responsibility of trying to take care of them in the UK when I was in and out of the UK a lot, coming back as a forward to Cyprus, that got easier when I got a bigger management structure in Cyprus. And once I put that structure in place, that did alleviate a lot of that pressure for me because I had management structure on the ground in Cyprus. But also going through the menopause really nearly derailed me massively. I thought I was going to sail through the menopause. And I really didn't. And it was the last few years of my business. And I really struggled with that. And I felt really embarrassed thinking, hang on a second, people look up to me as this massively, successful, strategic person. And here I am not feeling like that massively successful, strategic person right now. I just want to stay under my duvet and not really come out. So there were definitely times that I found it really difficult. And the only thing I would say is, thank God I sought the right support and help to get me through those moments. And it was other women going through the same thing, other women who would understand, the difficulties of juggling aging parents who were in and out of hospital and my own health. A very supportive partner, a very supportive husband was incredibly behind me all the way. He's not involved in my business, but he was very pragmatic about stuff. And he'd say, look, nobody's died yet. There's always a solution. Whenever you have a crisis, there's always a solution. Just reach out to your support network on the ground. People are going to step in. You just got to ask for help. Right now, Just go and ask for the help. And every single time I did, sure as enough, thank God, people stepped up and said, what can we do to help you? So I would always say to people that that's really, your support network is so valuable to you, especially when you're running a remote business like I was. I was based in the UK. My business was in another country. Yeah. That isn't always easy when things go pear-shaped.
Yeah. That, I think it's so incredibly powerful to highlight that, because without a support network, it can be virtually impossible to pull through certain situations. Not to say that it is impossible, but boy, oh boy, does it make life so much easier when we've got people around us who can lean in, who can support us when we raise our hand and say we need help, right?
But even taking time off, isn't it? Even taking time off, like, as an entrepreneur, you almost don't give yourself permission to take time off, to recharge, to take that reset opportunity, because you just think you have to be in it all the time. And I would say to people now, no, the really important thing is that you can't be in it all the time. You will burn yourself out. You cannot do that. You have to put something in place. And if that requires an investment in bringing somebody in to help you, I tell you that investment will pay off tenfold by having that person in the business to help you. Even if it's part-time, even if it's a VA, somebody that can take some of that load off you is so incredibly important.
Boy, oh boy. I couldn't agree more. One of my KPIs that I track each and every week are my downtime hours. It is very easy for me to work 16 hours a day. Like, I love what I do. This is fun to me. And so, it is very easy for me to just spend days, mornings, evenings in my office. Yeah. And so last year, I started putting as a KPI my downtime hours during the work week, where I have a target number of hours that I aim to hit each and every month. It doesn't always happen that I hit them every week. I'm tracking against a month versus a specific week. But just having line of sight into those downtime hours makes it easier for me to accomplish, right?
And I think those non-negotiables are important. I always say to people I work with, I said, when it comes to time management, don't give yourself this huge long list of things that you're not going to achieve. Pick 3 really big things and aim for those. But also, as you say, put in your diary that non-negotiable time for you. That's not about looking after the family. It's not about doing the shopping. It's about something that's important to you, that makes you feel like not least you've earned it, but it's important that you have that mental space from always being on. Because like you, I love what I do. I'm incredibly passionate about it. For me, who needs a hobby when you're doing something you're very passionate about? But you're right. When you're working in a country that's got a different time zone and your staff have already been working 2 hours ahead of you, even waking up, there is a risk that you end up stretching your day by 2 hours at the beginning and 2 hours at the end. And your clients want you to be available at the weekends and evenings. And it's like, where do you draw the boundaries? Because I didn't have very good boundaries at the beginning. And I certainly got better at putting those boundaries in place.
I'm curious, what boundaries were most important for you as you did put them in place?
I think you're right. It's kind of protecting some of those important family times that I didn't really I didn't protect those enough to begin with, because it's like the business needs me. I think just recognizing that, without your family, why are you doing this? Without your health, why are you doing this? So I actually started protecting my health more. As I started realizing I was really struggling with my health, I started protecting that way more, because I think you cannot operate on an empty cup. And too many women operate on empty, and then we get burned out, and then you're no good to anybody. So I think those are some of the boundaries that I really recognized that were really important to protect. And I had to be the person to protect them. Nobody else was going to protect them. Everybody else would have abused them had I allowed them to. I had to put the boundaries in place. Yeah.
Amen. I'm curious if you ever had folks in your ecosystem, friends, family members, that looked at you and said, Lisa, what are you doing? Why are you operating a business in another country? You should just do something local, where they tried to change what you were doing. How did you deal with naysayers in that,
I've been really lucky, actually, Stacey, because I come from a very entrepreneurial family. All of my family were in business. So actually my lifestyle, and my husband was in the military, so we've always traveled a lot. So I don't think I've come from a fairly typical family family, really. And I think and also I went to boarding school because my father was in the military. So I had a very nomadic childhood. And I don't think people have really ever expected me to do anything normal. I mean, I've done normal corporate careers, but I just don't think normal ever sits with me because I always look for like where there's a problem, I want to find a solution to it. I want to find a, service. So I thrive on things that other people probably walk away from.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. If you were working with someone who were dealing with naysayers, what advice would you give to them?
I would probably say, you're never going to convince those naysayers of what your purpose is. Mm-hmm. Your purpose is very important, is for you. Like what their purpose is their purpose. But you need to have self-belief and obviously backed up with a solid business plan and, your reasoning for doing it. But I would say, don't let those naysayers derail you from something you're incredibly passionate and committed to doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's so important for women to not only have a voice in this industry, but a voice to advocate for themselves. And so often when we have people in our lives who want to change what we're doing or maybe don't understand what we're doing, and so they want to give reasons why you shouldn't be doing that. I think it's so important to advocate for yourself, to know why you're doing it, number one, to know the value that you bring. And I always share like putting an energy armor around you. So I always think about having a clear plexiglass box around me. And that plexiglass box protects the positive energy that comes from within and allows me to shine that positive energy out. But it protects anything from penetrating, again, that energy, that worth, that value, because people do try to throw arrows.
Especially when you look at the data the data that frustrates me is, when 70% of hospitality is women, only 22% of that is people in senior management or senior director positions, which I find very sad data. But I think that I always say, I never chase the money. I chase the positive impact I could have on other people, and the money came with it, actually. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't driven by money. I was driven by delivering a great service and looking after people. And then what I got with that was client loyalty. My landlord stayed with me for 18 years. Some of them are still good friends with me now. And even guests still write to me and tell me when they're still going back to Cyprus. I got Christmas cards of some of my guests even this year, and I've been out of the business several years now. But building that loyalty, that brand loyalty, was so much more value to me than any amount of money in the bank.
Amen. Amen. And to your point, when you focus on the right things, the money will follow. The money is a byproduct of focusing on the right things.
Yep. I absolutely believe that. And I've worked for corporate companies and I never felt valued. And the one thing I took from my corporate career into my business was I would always look after my people and my people would look after my business. And they absolutely did.
Love that. I'm curious, if you were starting again today, what would you do differently?
Well, it's interesting you should say that because I'm just about to buy a property in France. So I am going to get back into being a short-term rental host. Crazy as you might sound. And I'm really excited about it because although the market and things have moved on, I'm not put off by the complexities of the market now. I'm an optimist and I'm a glass half full type person. So where everybody else says it's doom and gloom, I'm going, there's always an opportunity. If you get your market right, if you get your property right in the right location, you know who you're targeting as a guest and you get all your brand. I'm about building a direct booking brand. That's who I am. I believe that's yes, you can use the other channels. The channels are there for distribution. But if you can invest in building a strong direct booking brand and attract the right people to come and stay with you, it can be a very successful business despite all the challenges that there are now. So here I am, several years after selling a very big company, I'm now thinking about going back into being a private hosting, and I'm really excited about it, because I love the idea of looking after people again and giving them a great experience. So I would just go back to get the foundations right. Look at what it is what am I buying? Where is it? Who is it right for? Who is that target guest? Profile that and attract those people with, why they should come and try Nantul on ballet in the Charon area of France because I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to share that excitement and that passion with somebody else who perhaps hasn't come and tried it yet.
So good. I'm excited for you.
I'm really excited.
That is something where you've come full circle, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, nobody would have thought I was going to declare, at this stage now where I don't really need to do this. But when you walk into a property and it talks to you, and this property is a very old property and it talks to you, you just go, I just want to share this with people. Mm-hmm. I could keep it to myself, but I really want to share it with people because it's a fantastic location in a beautiful part of France. It's got a lot of history. If those walls could talk, they could tell you a huge amount of history, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited about that. So yeah, again, it comes back to, it's not about driven by the money. It's about looking after people and giving them a great experience. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I love that. So good. Okay, Lisa, I want to move to the lightning round. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a set of questions. I'm just going to ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Indonesia.
Okay.
I taught Indonesia on my own. Yeah. So so this is something I do. Although I'm married, every year I go traveling on my own. This is about personal growth. This is about taking that time out, that reset opportunity. So last year I traveled around Indonesia on my own for a month. And I loved it. Yeah, a month. And I had the best experiences. People were so very generous and kind. And it meant that I could operate an itinerary that suited me and I didn't have to worry about anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I absorbed the culture, the country. So I went to the Gili Islands and I went to Lombok, I went to Bali. And I've been there before, but many years ago. But this was a refresher for me. So yeah, that's where I would go.
That is really brave, I will say, to travel abroad on your own. That's amazing.
But I think it's really good, actually, if women can do it. And I am a member of a solo travel sort of group on Facebook. And it's encouraging that there are more and more women doing it. But you learn a lot about yourself when you have to be self-sufficient. But it also means you get to make friends. You get to meet other people on your travels.
Have you ever been in a situation where you are traveling on your own where you have felt unsafe as a solo female traveler?
Not unsafe, but I got very ill traveling. I was very poorly for about 4 days and I was on my own. And that's a moment when you kind of go, God, what was I thinking? But again, I'm thinking, well, I'm not in the back of Beyond's. Medical care is available if I really need it. Right. The hotel where I wasn't well. So yeah, there are moments like that. But again, I think it just shows our resilience as women that we can do this.
Yeah. Amen. Okay, next question. What's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
I have not been to Nepal, and I'd really like to go to Nepal.
All right. I love that. Okay. Next question. What's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting in the world of short-term rentals?
I wish I knew that there were a lot of people out there who would have helped me had I gone out and asked them. And that there are mentors and coaches and people that have got experience that they will share with you now. Those people are there, tap into that knowledge because it's going to make your life a lot easier and you're going to make a lot less mistakes by tapping into that support, whether it's joining a community, whether it's getting a mentor, whatever it is. But, it's there. Go and use it.
Amen. All right. Next question. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Doesn't have to relate to short-term rentals. It can, but doesn't have to.
Keep on top of your financials. Know your numbers. Like, don't operate a business and be naive about your numbers, really. Because, if you leave it in the hands of your accountant and you just assume that at the end of the year, everything's hunky-dory, you often find it's not. So I would say keep on top of your numbers on a monthly basis. Know your figures. Yeah. Because then you've got more control over your business by knowing that. I mean, in terms of business, that is. But in terms of personal things, well, I don't know. I just think we're stronger than we think we are.
Amen to that. The other thing that you said earlier that I think is so important to highlight is you look for opportunities, and opportunities don't create themselves. We create opportunities, right?
Yep. And I get really frustrated when people say, the market's really saturated. And I say, if you go into a supermarket, how many brands of shampoo or coffee are there on shelves?
Right.
And do they all sit there going, I don't want to sit beside another shampoo or another coffee brand because the market is saturated? Of course they don't. It's about people going, well, my coffee or my champagne is perfect for you because you're blonde, or you like strong coffee, you like decaf coffee. And I think people get fearful of this mentality of there's just too much out there. How am I going to compete with it? Rather than going, actually, I am going to be the best version of what I am, what I can offer to the right people. I don't just want a bit everybody. I want specific people to come and stay with us.
Yes. 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 So good. All right. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful to my dad.
Oh.
My dad was an entrepreneur. My dad's no longer with us, but my dad was an entrepreneur quite late in life. And he really encouraged us to do the best we could with the skills that we had and to be authentically who we are. And I wish my dad could see how his girls have really listened to his entrepreneurial advice and followed in his entrepreneurial spirit. And we've gone out there and we've created businesses by ourselves with the support of our families. But that's what we've done. And I think he would be very proud of that, hopefully.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. And I believe he's looking at you from above and cheering you on.
I believe that too. You know, there's a little saying, and I don't know if you have a similar thing in the States, but if a robin appears, it's somebody who's passed. And often a robin appears in my garden, and my dad had red hair. And I often go, hi, Dad. How do you think we're doing? Yes. A robin appears in your garden. It's somebody who has passed. Yeah.
Love that. Lisa, if anyone listening or watching wants to reach out to you, wants to find out more about your services, your community, what is the best place for them to find you online?
So LinkedIn, I'm very often on LinkedIn. So Lisa Rhodes on LinkedIn. My business name is The Holiday Property Coach. And we've got the Women in Short-Term Rentals community on Facebook.
I love it. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's been such a great, I'm so glad we finally made this happen, Stacey, because, you know, we've kind of circled around each other for a while, and it's lovely to always chat to somebody who's as passionate about this sector as I am. Thank you so much.